Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Awakening Journey, a podcast where I invite you to join me into deep and meaningful conversations about the awakening process. My name is Milan, and I'm your host. In each episode, I invite my guests to share their most profound insight about their own awakening journey, hoping you will find here the guidance and the inspiration that you need to navigate your own twists and turns in your own awakening journey. And today I have a very, very special guest, Viviane Chauvet. Hello, Viviane. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, Milan. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah, it's truly a joy. We had a little technical challenges before recording, but I just connecting with you right now, I can feel the joy coming back. And I'm so happy to do this interview with you. I've known you for many years now, and I'm so happy to share with my community your work and who you are and what is your mission on Earth. So I'll start by introducing you. So you're originally from Canada, from Quebec,
Mhm.
where I'm from, and you're internationally recognized for your international life journey as an advanced Arcturian hybrid avatar. So we'll talk about that in the podcast. Your healing practice and teachings inspire people to live in universal consciousness as sovereign divine beings. You specialize in multidimensional frequency healing, conscious channeling, soul matrix healing, and holographic body template upgrade. In 2013, you founded Infinite Healing from the Stars, and you have conducted that was really impressive, Vivian, over 23,000 healing sessions with clients worldwide. And you also serve as an emissary for the intergalactic councils and other star delegations. So that sounds like a really promising episode because we have a lot to dive into. So usually, Viviane, with my guests, I rewind so that they can share their awakening process and how it all started. But for you, it's very different because you're an Arcturian hybrid avatar. And maybe people are hearing that for the first time. They don't really know what it means. Or maybe they are familiar, but I think we could maybe start with sharing what is that and what is the difference between arriving as an Arcturian hybrid avatar on Earth and just being a regular human being.
Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. So, we're going to
Thank you.
demystify a few things. So, what it means in a nutshell is that, and as my soul emanation or the spark essence of who I am the Arcturian hybrid, not hybrid, an Arcturian being. And I want to make the difference between the Arcturian part of myself and the word hybrid, and to put it in its proper context.
Okay.
So, at a soul level, who I am and what I represent is I'm a direct representative, an ambassador on behalf of the Arcturian delegation. And who we are known as one of the most enlightened and very ancient intergalactic
Mm,
groups that have been interacting with the Earth and the solar system for thousands and thousands of years. So I chose as an Arcturian being to send forth a soul emanation of my enlightened avatar, Arcturian self, in a physical body that will allow me to be more on the planet and being able to interact and do my work directly, more effectively, boots on the ground, if you
mm,
want, rather than remain in my Arcturian original self and
mm,
interact to transmission through the planets. There's much more effectiveness in how much we can do by me being
mm-hmm,
on the planet. So the hybrid part of me is my body. And what does it mean
mm,
is that my body was literally engineered and constructed by the advanced organic technology of the Arcturians when we brought perfect aspect of stabilized genetic material to bring this vessel so they can have a root source or a point of connection through the planet and still retaining as much as possible a higher percentage or a higher frequency that represent my Arcturian self. So I can be more effective in my direct
mm.
transmission. I know there's no need for me to channel because it's direct.
It's direct, yeah.
Exactly. So my vessel or my body that to you I look human, but not to them. Nobody referred to me as a human in the intergalactic communities. They all recognizes me
Mm,
as an Arcturian being, and they know my point of origination. But to you, I look very much
mm-hmm.
just like you, and that was the
Yeah,
idea. So
yeah.
this is why when you look at the bio, I'm an Arcturian being in a hybrid humanized form. That would be the
Mm.
translation behind it that make more sense that way.
It does actually. It really does, Viviane. And it's sometimes difficult to understand that we are multidimensional beings, and that there are other beings assisting us in the universe. And sometimes it's hard to understand all that. So I think you explained this very well. And so it brings to me like a question of who you were as a kid, because if you're an Arcturian being on a planet with human beings, I'm wondering, like, how was it for you? Was it very clear from the beginning that you were not human? Did you already have that consciousness from a very young age?
That's actually a very powerful question, Milan, and I want to thank you for it. And it really is. So my journey was very reverse in my case, in the sense that
Yeah.
I've always known and understood that I was this, I like to use this word with love, this extraterrestrial being in this humanized form. And my journey was more in terms of rediscovering what it feels like to grow up,
Mm-hmm.
go to school, interact with humans, looking at different level of cultural background, diversity of thought system, whether it's watching the adults interacting with the children or how the children behave with each other. And I remember distinctively, even in elementary school, looking around, observing, and found a lot of illogical things. Like, it was very illogical in ways that kids would, bump into each other or play hardball to hurt each other. And I'm like, what is the purpose for all of this? And I remember even at that young age, elementary school, even in kindergarten, I would be sitting in a classroom and thinking how illogical, to my perspective, the
Mm-hmm.
teacher was talking to the children or inviting them to play in pointless games that to me had you know, no necessity, no value in terms of teaching or wisdom. Of
Yeah.
course, you have to remember that even more as a child, I was very much open, remembering how we teach our children, how our society works. And you come here and you go, that's fascinating. And I would not
Mm.
necessarily argue with a teacher, but I would make my point across. What do you want me to force me to put these wooden blocks on top of each other? It is pointless. I don't, I,
I remember feeling like that too, Vivian. So I'm not an Arcturian, but I'm sure a lot of star seeds and souls that are here that are like really here to awaken will remember that. I remember that being looking around and thinking, what the heck is happening? What am I doing here? This is not like, I don't understand. So thank you for sharing that, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people will relate to that experience, even though they're not Arcturians, as you're saying.
And I knew you were
Mm-hmm.
going to say that, Milan, and this is why I shared this way, because many star seed, soul emanation, comes from other star systems or representing different intergalactic group consciousness. The difference is that you embody a complete human form, so you have a
Mm-hmm.
stronger connections to the earth, you have a stronger connection or ability to navigate through the human field and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
even though at a soul level, inside of you in your consciousness, you may feel like a stranger in a strange land. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and I can appreciate that. Now, imagine in my case, also navigate through a physical body that was never designed for me to be this so long on the planet and sustaining so many difficulties in terms of how the body was growing, the functionality of all the
Mm-hmm.
systems. So there was a lot of challenge adapting to this human form. And of course, the balance between the portion that is the genetic connection to the earth versus the other part of my genetics that is more highly I would say, non-terrestrial. And how do
Mm-hmm.
you navigate? How do you keep that balance in a way that the body is still functioning? So growing up for me was really very difficult on multitude of levels, not just for interactions, societal, the energy of consciousness, family, and dynamic. That's already the baseline. But in addition to that, I had a body that was not fully adapted to be here. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
be very mindful. I couldn't, have too much physical interaction, or I couldn't be, playing sport, things like that. I had to be super careful with all of this. But it's
Mm-hmm.
more in terms of that presence that always been with me. My intergalactic group always been with me, communicating clearly through that transmission that you will call telepathic communications. So imagine sitting in a classroom, even in high school, and I can see what a teacher is saying on the front of the, and I can see what's going on in the classroom. But around me, I have these intergalactic group also communicating with me all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. So that was already clear in your teenage years.
oh yes, yes,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yes. It's more in terms of the challenge for me was to understand what it felt like to be a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and the reconciliation between who I am and how everybody else was perceiving me and my
Mm-hmm.
nature or my true self. So it was that reconciliation. And I would say more when I came into my early 20s, that things start to really come into place, like more into, I would say, the next phase of embracing another aspect of myself. Start in my 20s, this is where things start to come together more. And then I was starting to shift more physically, etherically, the frequency transmission. I was getting a lot of upgrades, and I've been getting a lot of upgrades ever since. But I can tell there was an acceleration that took place once I moved out of that growing child teenagerhood portion of the human experience, then things start to accelerate significantly for me.
You talk about the upgrades, Viviane, and I really want to dive into this because I feel that our human body, our template, the ones that are human, is being like we're being upgraded very, very often. It's like the body is shifting. There's a shift in consciousness, and we are invited to integrate new energy, new quantum data, like a lot of new information in the body. And I know for the listeners that are at home listening to this conversation, they're gonna relate with this process of upgrade. You say like in your 20s, it became a little bit easier, but you still get these upgrades, right? They're just I guess infinite because we keep on expanding and going through evolution. But I'm wondering if you can share with us like what were the challenges when you were like upgrading to be fully able to embody this Arcturian being that you are, to remember fully and to really be able to be comfortable with the body and the energy.
It's a multi-layered question you're asking me, but I
Yeah.
have to
Okay.
approach it this way, that this is not a black and white question answer at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some a little bit of I would say overlapping concepts. I want to clarify a few
Okay.
things. So we
Yeah.
talk about overall the human race has been going through a lot of changes, whether it's historical, planetary, influence the solar frequencies. Yes, your body shifting, your cells rejuvenate. There's a 7 years, 7 day or 7 week cycle you go through. And there's also a lot of changes on a conscious level. That's an overall looking at from a humanized, more standardized understanding of changes. We go through
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, appetite changes, diet change, sleep patterns, mood swing. So we say that's your baseline. What I mean by upgrade, I mean it's a whole different level. Again, you have to think of me that I am an Arcturian being, an interstellar being, a engineered body, and what is important for us was to project a very normal human look alike to you so you can feel more comfortable to interact with us. But the meaning of
Mm-hmm.
upgrades for me will be very different. So
Mm-hmm.
the multiple level of upgrades that I'm going through is just to maintain the vitality and the functionality of my body just to begin with. Because my
Mm-hmm.
body has reached a level of viability. The body was designed to up to a maximum, and I've reached that maximum already. So I
Okay.
need to be maintained in a way that your food here and all the supplement minerals and everything that you have, it's not enough for me. It's not enough to
Mm-hmm.
sustain this physical organic form. So this is why I want to
Mm-hmm.
make a distinction because
Yeah, that's very interesting. And
yeah,
what do you do to, because the food or the supplements or what we have doesn't feel enough for
mhm.
the body? Like, what do you do to complete what you need?
It's not what I do. It's that's why my intergalactic group comes
Mm,
in, and that's part of the
mm-hmm,
upgrades that I need to have. So my
mm-hmm,
physical template is being reattuned by their technology,
mm,
but what I
mm.
need the most that is non-existent here.
Yeah, so it's vibratory. Mm-hmm,
It, in a sense, if you want to really
mm,
simplify it,
mm,
yes,
mm,
but it's a bit more complex than that.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I
mm-hmm,
need to bring me on board and use our technology that to
mm,
completely um, redesign or restructure the template
mm,
and then make the
mm,
necessary reattunement or readjustment and then bring it back so I
mm,
can continue to blend in and
mm,
more integrate more and more and still being able to maintain my immune system and all the basic functionality of the physical body requires and the internal
mm-hmm.
system. So it's more than
Mm.
vibrational.
What I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, because it's another universe, you know. It's completely another way to function. So I'm super happy to discover more about that. And you've been saying, Viviane, they made me very normal. And you look very normal. Met you in person. You look very normal. But when we look closely, we can feel like there's something different. And I'm wondering, like, did you start sharing very early on this reality that you're sharing now worldwide? Like, it's not, you're very open about this. Um, you have a huge community. You give interviews everywhere. You teach in many conferences, and it's out in the open. But I'm wondering, like, if we rewind a little bit, was it out in the open with your family in the beginning, with your friends, with the people that you worked with? Like, how was it?
mm. Oh no, I was like undercover. Yeah. No, no, no,
Uh
no.
huh.
The only ones who really know, even to this day, my human family, that point at what I call my root connection to the earth, are only my direct birth parents and my brother. And even to
Mm-hmm.
my brother, I only have one, and to him, I'm just his little sister. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how he was able to cope with it. You're my sister, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it's a very, very, very tight, exclusive group that way. We have to wait a long time to look at the stabilization, not only of the frequency field of Gaia, but also of humanity consciousness. If I was to be publicly exposed too early, I would have been in danger,
Mm-hmm.
and for many reasons. So I only became public just about, I would say, back in 2012. So this is
Mm-hmm.
about 12 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
2012 was just an introductory point at that point, and then things start to unfold. But even over the last 12 years, it's been very challenging. Just wanted to work with other teachers or bring association with other groups and everything. After time, people were still afraid of me because you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something important, Milan. Yes, at first glance, and you talk to me and you look at me, not a big deal, just a human who has those extraordinary experience, right? But you start to feel and tune in and to look a little closer, you go, there's something weird about this woman. There's something different, that's not quite put together
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And then you start to
Mm-hmm.
realize it's also part of the experience as the emanation, it's what we convey. And there's more than me. There's a big group that comes with me. So there's also a presence. And even when I start to get more public with my first interview and then getting a little bit more attention, I was getting a lot of pushback, a lot of door closed on me. Nobody wanted to really work with me, or nobody offered me opportunity. Sometimes you hear teacher who really make it big because somebody saw something in them, took them on their wings and
Yeah.
introduced them to their community. I did it
Yeah.
all on my own up
Yeah.
to a certain point, and I would say it's
Yeah.
only been the last 3 to 4 years that I really start to be more accepted, and then people wants to invite me to their podcast or summit or conference, or I just was invited to potentially go speak in a conference in Japan recently. That's
Wow.
just more recent. Why? Because the last 3 4 years is marking in your timeline a huge acceleration of the human consciousness awakening. So the journey has been very isolated for me, not from an intergalactic universal perspective,
Yeah.
but from an
Yeah.
Earth perspective. So now you see me more of me. Why? Because our frequencies is more accepted, and there's a predisposition or greater stabilization in the field to bring us forward, and then it's going to continue to move on. But it's been the opposite a lot, and no
Yeah.
one. I used to work full time, 20 years plus, normal, get to wake up in the morning, pack your lunch, wait in a corner for the bus to pick you up, go to work. Hey, everybody, good morning. Okay, what's the
And
uh,
what was your job, Vivian? I'm so like I just imagine like an Arcturian sitting doing like work. So what was your job back then?
exactly. But I did a lot. I worked many, many years in the educational field, and then I became a translator of French and English. I did some voiceover. I did some management of account management. And the latest one, which is really right before I shift completely full time in my spiritual work, I was working for one of the largest credit card company, more the financial department. And I remember being sitting at this cubicle, looking at my colleagues, looking around, and I told my Octran father, I said, Father, what the cosmic bleep am I doing here? And then father said, Remember, everything is a purpose. You're here to you're here to accelerate the changes within an industry that's going to be shifting structure completely. So you come to initiate that change, and you're here to bring back the light, the spark of light with everyone you're going to be interacting with. And so I realized what my real purpose was there beyond earning a paycheck at that point was to shift the vibrational frequency or initiating a paradigm shift within this industry. And I did
Wow.
into some degree because every life I touch, you can tell people were shifting, moving, or helping them unblocking from being in the same paradigm or being stuck on the mental level. I was helping them to unblock, and then the supervisor of our department was an ex-military lady who thought that she can run us like a platoon, but we had other ideas in mind. So I kind of defy her a little bit, and I let her know that that we that the team that she had is the great value that we're not object to be manipulated with. And of course, she never really liked me, and even she wouldn't even look at me because I was defining that paradigm of false authority and manipulation, and keeping everybody more at a lower fearful, power struggle level. And I'm like, oh no, 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 not under my watch. And that shifted, and we start to see less and less of her after that.
It's so interesting, Vivian, too, because I know you. I did a retreat with you, and it's so interesting because sometimes we imagine that the teachers that are in front of us we're just like teaching from the beginning, you know. But you were teaching, but like undercover. So we imagine we have this image, the spiritual image of what it should look like, or like. And I love that you're sharing the pushback, the challenges, because sometimes we imagine, oh, she has this big team, so she must be. They facilitate her, and of course they're there, but you still have to navigate the challenges. And I yeah, I really love to hear you more about the pushback, because I think when we hear about channeling, somebody that channels an entity or a guide, we're being very open to that. But when it comes to just being an Arcturian being, that scares us a little bit more because we don't understand it so well. Eh? I'm interested to have you comment on this, because there's a lot of channels out there in the world, but for you it's very direct. You know, it's not like the channeling
Mm-mm.
experience, as you said in the beginning, but yeah, I'm curious to understand a little bit more. Like, why do you think people were fearful of who you are? What's the fear about, you know?
Well, it's a really good observation. And so think about it this way. I'm going to illustrate something here. Those who channels, either they're intergalactic groups, a higher cosmic consciousness, the being of
Mm-hmm.
light, it responds to a desire to have more meaningful connection, opening our channel. People wants to know, to feel, to connect, to be part of something bigger. So
Mm-hmm.
we said, okay, instead of calling each other over the phone, we're just going to meet face to face. That's the difference. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, and we see that in society overall. It's there's a comfortable barrier between being a channel that you bring, you get used to feel in a certain way, get used to the feeling, the sensory get more activated. You like the feeling of bringing this beautiful knowledge message and how it makes you feel. So you get used to that feel of how we connect with you through I'll be in the other room, we'll be on the phone, and we're going to connect that way. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
we remove that barrier or that comfort zone, and we say,
Mm-hmm.
instead of communicating through you, we're just communicating with you, and we're going to be in the same field, we're going to share the same space and field with you. I can assure you, Milan, that changed the dynamic completely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same phenomenon. People listen to us through, multiple of podcasts like your beautiful one, and streaming platform, my own podcast and others.
Yeah.
Well, if you feel it to the screen, to Zoom, to start StreamYard, or to any other platform or to your device, is the same thing as this comfortable zone. When you are in
Yeah.
our presence, it's direct. The energy is even stronger, more potent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a synergy that if physically or physiology or even consciously you feel you're not quite ready that much, that it's going to
Mm-hmm.
challenge you. It's going to activate
Mm-hmm.
your nervous system or your senses, or it's going to activate on the
Yeah.
emotional level. It's going to create, some of them embrace it with open arms, and others feel like, oh no. And I'll give you an example, even those who are super popular. I recently was introduced by a very reliable source, a gentleman who is very well known, has a large following, and he likes me. So it took me to introduce me to Daryl Anka, who channeled Bashar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, guess what happened? He looked at me and tell me, no, it didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
have nothing to do with me. It couldn't pass
Mm-hmm.
that barrier. And my friend,
Mm-hmm.
who's that reputable source, this gentleman, told him Vivian is an Arcturian being. He just glanced at me and like there was this door shut down. And it's not the first time I go to that.
Mm-hmm.
you
Hmm.
know.
That's so interesting that you share that, Vivian, because some of us have the it's the opposite, you know. It just opens like so quickly. So for me, that was the connection. I knew I had a really deep connection with the Arcturians. I didn't even know they were beings. They were part of my team. I didn't even know anything about the Arcturians. I was familiar with the Pleiadians or other groups, other civilization, but not the Arcturians. And at the time, my partner, who was not my partner, but who is my partner now, said, I met someone and she's an Arcturian. And I remember, Vivian, I was like in a hotel room. I didn't even need to know who you were. It opened inside of me. I Googled Viviane Chauvet. I didn't even have time to find you. Two Arcturian beings appeared in my hotel room. They were so tall, and I just started crying. And I was like, "What's happening?" You know, I didn't know, but I just knew I was ready for that. It just opened naturally, and I can understand for some other people, it's scary or you don't understand the language. My guess is that I've had many connection or maybe lives with the Arcturians, and so it was easy for me to like reconnect with them. It felt somehow very familiar, like these beings, and they're just like full of love and full of knowledge, and I have nothing to fear. So,
Mhm.
and then we started connecting a little bit more, but like that was my first reaction to it. So it's interesting to see some people are very open and other people will have the little pushback because it's just like it's very different.
That's a really powerful observation. And I remember
Yeah.
when you first discover us. So if you already are more familiar with the intergalactics and you are communicating with different groups, or even as a star seed yourself, and
Yeah.
if you have in your soul ancestry or your galactic soul ancestry, either some maybe past lives or time that you spend with us
Mm-hmm.
in our realms, or part of the groups that you connecting with, that old friends or old
Mm-hmm.
teachers, they're very familiar, that frequency will be recognized and it's going to bring that joy of reconnection. It's more of a reunion. That's because you've
Mm-hmm.
already attuned to our very specific frequency. So for you, it was more like, oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
am returning to that
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
connection and embracing it.
Yeah, it was just like a big wave of love and of support. Like we're there for you. I remember I was still teaching in university and it was a really tough year. And I was like, what the hell, you know, what is this? And they just arrived in my room. And other civilization, I connect not as much. I will hear about them, but I don't have my heart doesn't necessarily open like it does for the Arcturian. So it makes me even more excited that we're having this conversation today with them, with you and them. um, so so let's transition a little bit, Viviane, from um, your personal story to like what's happening right now in the world. We're living in a very special time. We have we are shifting consciousness. We can see this shift in consciousness happening, but it's stirring a lot of mud, you know. And I call this the shadow. Like a lot of the shadow is coming to the surface because we're becoming more and more conscious of who we are, of what love is, of what abuse is. Like we're really starting to lighten up and awaken. But through the awakening process, there's a wave of shadow, I would say, that is coming to the surface. And excuse me, for my students and the community that I guide, something that I hear a lot is like, is our world okay? There's a lot of fear about this shadow coming to the surface so that we can see it and clear it. But there's a lot of fear, like in this movement that we are embarking in this shift. And I would like you to share a little bit with us, like how can we really engage with all of these changes without falling into despair as we see war, conflict in the world, or fall into fear and feel defensive about like the world, feel that we have to protect ourselves.
Very true. And this is very normal. You are truly at a huge historical moment on your planet. This is something that's been foreseen for a very long time. And this is why it's been so many generations of starseed have come to the planet at a multitude of time or multiple of historical moment in your world. So right now we have such a large amount of support, solar movement, starseeds presence, and mastery presence because you really have reached that momentum. I would say it's watching an entire civilization reaching the breaking point to the most important evolution.
Wow.
So when you are at that breaking point, you can feel something bigger, a higher calling, even in your cells are shifting. The way you think, the way you feel. There's an omnipresence, an energy, a synergy in the air, so to speak, that is really triggering the wondering, the questioning, the symptoms you may be going through physically, emotionally, mentally. But remind yourself of this, that if you accept yourself that you are a cosmic eternal being and only a fractal or a soul fragment of you is in this body that you called your earth identity. And my name is, I grew up here, this is my family, this is my story. This is just the experience you come to have. So it's going to be important to start to detach yourself or unwind from the attachment around that story. Like, you know, my name, Viviane Chauvet. And by the way, it's so refreshing to hear you say my name correctly
Viviane.
because, you know, as
Chauvet.
a French
Avec
Canadian
l'accent
to another,
québécois.
ben oui,
Yeah.
c'est tellement
With-
rafraîchissant. Merci beaucoup pour ça.
Bienvenue.
Well, that name that I kept, I didn't change my name for the Arcturian ambassador of the Blue Star. No, I don't do that. My name is Viviane Chauvet, and that's because that's my direct heart, earth heart connection to you. But when I work with these intelligence, even the masters of light, or when I go to the realm of light and work with the different masters or different intergalactic councils, they never call me by Viviane Chauvet. There's no names, there's no identity, there's no badge that says, hello, my name is. Okay. How do we do it? Is there's a direct soul recognition of who we are. It's a soul exchange, what we call a soul essence exchange. It's almost like, here's my vibratory signal, and you send me yours, and we know who we are for each other. And it's really incredible that way. I just saw a beautiful blue orb, and they're super happy when I say that. The point we are making is that it's the same thing for you. When I say you, it's you as a civilization, the human race. You're starting to re-identify to more essential core values. So it's going to be important to cultivate your inner peace, your connection. Where are you invested the most every day? It's going to be important to maintain yourself consciously, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually into a higher alignment. So when you contract your field into fear, anxiety, despair, and all of the above, you're retracting yourself. So I'm going to give you a 3D image. Like you're going back in bed and you're pulling like 5 blankets above your head. And you go, I'm having a hard time breathing. Well, because 5 blankets above your head going to constrict the oxygen flow. So that's a 3D analogy to illustrate what fear, despair, anxiety, stress does. It contracts your field, it contracts your light, like you would be contracting oxygen off of your lungs. The same thing. So what to do is come back to identify, who am I? That's right. I am a divine being. In reality, I am an internal being. And only a fractal of me, an aspect of me, is in that identity that I love so much, my body, how I look, my story, my lineage, where I come from, my language of origin. It's all part of the experience you're having. When you start to identify yourself on a much bigger level, you start to remove the blanket off of your head and start to rediscover that you're part of a very intelligent, evolving, and changing universe. How many diversity of life there are on this planet. Imagine diversity of life that exists in the universe. Okay. Start to get attuned with the pulse of life as opposed to be in tune with the pulse of fear. Okay. When you attune yourself to the pulse of life, you can even ask Gaia or the earth consciousness. Yes, your planet is a conscious being. She's not a rock. She's a conscious being in a form of, that's her body. Connect to Gaia, connect to the grids, feel a connection to your feet, and visualize your internal tree of life really expanding like an ancient being, like taking new roots. Yes, the old structures must be removed. You can no longer evolve within a matrix reality that keeps you slave on money to survive, to eat, subsistence, depending on an employer, a job. Hopefully, they're going to like you and keep you. That's insanity. So you're reawakening out of this video game that keeps you into the survival instinctual primal energy of food, reproduction, and safety. And that is the insanity. So you're shifting out of it. There will be a lot of assistance. Remember that you are existing in a very intelligent, vast universe. And for those of you who are in Canada, my heart goes out to all of you, especially because Canada has lost its original spark that we saw originally when I came back to the planet. We chose Canada for a purpose, and that must be retrieved, that must be rekindled. And that starts with all of you, regardless of your government. They lost their marble, they lost their inner compass anyway, regardless of what you've been told on TV and the lunch news and the afternoon news and the dinner news that just repeat the same stories over and over and over. For what purpose? To program your subconscious mind. Then you become convinced of that reality that has been fabricated for you, and then they're pushing it open that you will accept it. It really is. Reality, it's multi-layered.
Yeah, let's talk about that. This is like multidimensional consciousness and reality. That's very interesting, Viviane. When I started understanding this, I gained a lot of perspective on what is really in front of me. Like I could really question, is this really what's happening? And I started understanding that there's many like timelines, there's many layers, and I think you're the best to explain that. So can you guide us to understand all these layers of reality?
Yes. But what we were talking about, Milan, it's exactly illustrating those layers of reality. This is very
Okay.
important. It's to bring what you've been experiencing for the last 3, 4 years into higher perspective. This is why it's called stimulating and opening higher perspective lenses. Right? You're reopening your third eye. You're reopening your multidimensional perspective because so many people around the world in many countries has been contracted into a layer of a projected reality. And then when there's many people or a lot of people that abide from this projected layered reality, it becomes their reality. So what we talked about around Canada, it's pivotal for the changes, like a domino effect of a catalyst of reawakening that's going to lead the way throughout the planet. This is why we mentioned this. There was a purpose behind it. And that is directly tied up with a multidimensional perspective. So every day in your world, turn off the TV, unwind from the news. That is, again, a layer of a reality that is fabricated for you with stories, stimulus, emotional attachments, programming in the subconscious, all of it, allowing you to step out of that box that allow you to unwind more and more from that projected 3D matrix reality or linear way of perceiving yourself. And this is where you start to re-stimulating or reactivating your multidimensional sensory points. It's all interconnected. Do you see the
So,
analogy here?
yeah, I do. And um, what comes to mind is like when you're connected, that I always come back to that, but when you're connected to the heart, you don't perceive reality the same way as when you're connected with the fear-based consciousness, like with the mind that is like in fear-based consciousness. So it can be the same reality, like the same scenario in front of you, but you're not going to be interacting with that scenario in the same way. You're not going to feel the fear with the scenario because you're going to see the bigger picture. And so that's always how I try to understand it, or I, because it's very complex. It's so complex to understand all these layers. But then I maybe I oversimplify it, but I bring it back to when I look with my heart, I don't see the same thing as when I look with my conditioned mind, with what was learned, with what we've been doing for so many years, not knowing why we do it, just because everybody does it, you know? So I like that you say that, and I'm curious. So I'm curious to understand more, like what happened in Canada, so that we lost the spark. Like, what was the catalyst for that, or what happened? Um, is it, you talked a lot about the media, but is there something else that we can bring in our consciousness to understand it better and make the shift happen?
Well, for one thing that you mentioned is returning to living by the essential. It's allowing yourself to know that what was introduced in the conscious field throughout the country, and we see something similar in Australia, in other part of the world, something 3 or 4 years ago was introduced in the field, and some key players were put in place and reinforced that field. So what happened is that what you mentioned so beautifully is that there's been a retraction into the fear-based energy scarcity, retracting into more
Yeah.
primal energy. Oh, my home's going to be taken, I won't have any food. So they're playing on the primal instinctual needs. But when you start to really, in a practical way, returning to your heart center and ask, show me, reveal to me the truth behind it, a higher truth. Reveal to me what is really behind all of this. Reveal to me higher perspective. And it's going to be important for everyone. And I use Canada as an example because it is like a catalyst of positive change that many other countries will energically into the grid system follow. It's regain your power. Instead of giving back your power, whether it's whoever source that is, I use the media as a very well understood treaty example
Yeah.
of manipulative communications. So whether it's your neighbors, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's even during a spiritual gathering or when you meditate, is allow yourself to say, I'm going to unwind from these fear-based influence and I'm going to rediscover my inner universe and reconnect to the heart. Heart is much more than a cliche or a spiritual concept. It is truly the essence of who you are. When you're returning in that space, everything will lead the way for you. How you perceive yourself, self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance. Then you feel your energetic field start to blossom and expand. So you know you're no longer in a contraction of helplessness, but what can I do? Is only one of me. There's nothing I can
Yeah.
do. That's an illusion. Bring your light back. And then imagine if you're walking through life in this beautiful, expanded way, what happened? You become an inspiration, a beacon of light for many others who may feel, oh, I too have permission to do this. Yes, you do. So imagine right now, every citizen in Canada from coast to coast, from one post to the other, right across the country, regardless of what province you're from. Imagine everybody in Canada for a moment to come back into a more unified field, connect back to your heart, connect to your divine spark, feel, and as you breathe, let your energetic field of light expanding again. Now imagine thousands of you doing that. What happens? Okay.
It's like remembering that, like, we are light beings in a human form. Like, we're not just human,
Mm-mm.
eh? Like, I know we are human, but I think it's about remembering this light. And as you said, it can be a cliche, but it's not. We are light beings having a spiritual journey on earth, eh?
Yes, absolutely. So again, you are this eternal divine being of light, and only a sparkle of you has returned in this human form to learn, to evolve, to gain, to reconcile, to inspire. There's so much you can do, even in your day-to-day life. Even if you live in a little town or a huge city, it makes no difference. You're still who you are. So at that point, we're going to move beyond being an Earth human or an intergalactic or a galactic fairy or an angelic being. We all are these aspects of the prime creator. We all are divine essence of light, and we are all evolving. It's just some of us have reached different level of evolution.
Yeah, it's like a garden, eh, Viviane? Not all the vegetables are ready at the same time, you know? There's the spinach that gets out like very, very early. There's almost still snow. And then there's the tomato that's gonna need like more time to reach its peak. But like we're a garden. So sometimes people want to be at a certain point, or they're angry that their loved ones are not awakening faster, or, and I always come back to this metaphor, we're a garden. And so we can't bloom all at the same time because there's need to be food all year round, you know. So not everybody's going to bloom at the same time, and it's okay, you know. We all have our own timing, our own divine timing, and our own divine purpose in a given time, because we're all interconnected, eh?
Yes, absolutely, we are interconnected. You are all interconnected in a symbiotic way, especially with your planet, the resources, the animal kingdom. Return to be in reverence for whole life. Feel that you're part of everything. And that means that even those who seems to be still working on autopilot, the masters of light have taught me that no matter what is still considered as evolution. Some souls need to evolve in this 3D paradigm, and they will be allowed to continue to do so because that's perfect for them. And there is a large soul, a group soul on the planet that will continue to evolve in this 3D, maintain frequency until they're ready to evolve to the next level. And then the rest, the majority of us, will simply gladly reattune ourselves to a higher frequency, but it's still considered as evolution. So be gentle with yourself. Cultivate more benevolent thoughts, benevolent actions, words, and benevolent thoughts, words, and action is still mean to be empowered. It's still perceiving yourself as this sovereign being that you really are. And I'll tell you, the new quantum human being is redefining the label of what being a human being is about. So many souls come from everywhere in the multiverse to come to experience specifically being an earth human. It's a very powerful experience. So there's no need to um, you know, lower yourself or diminished what it means to be an earth human, because I can tell you, like never anywhere else in this universe, this is very unique here. We learn a lot from you. We learn a lot from how the earth is re-evolving back to her natural reascended self, and to watch an entire race along with a multitude of life beings, multitude of life forms, I mean, shifting in that direction, it is truly historical. More that we realize because we're here all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for all this guidance, Vivian. And we're coming to an end, and I would like maybe for you to share one last thing, and it's more about your work, because people might be listening this and feel compelled to connect with you and understand better what you do. And For me, I think the connection of working with you was really to help my body into the process of awakening. It's not just the body; it's much more than the body. But the process that we did together was really helping me to feel more comfortable in this body, to integrate my higher self, my high frequency in a human body on a planet. And so that's what it was for me. But I know you offer many things to a large community, and I would like us to conclude with that. Like, if people are feeling in resonance with your work, like, what do you offer?
Thank you very much for asking. And yes,
Mm.
your body template will shift alongside with your state of consciousness. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
very beautiful multidimensional process of shift and
Yeah.
expansion. So we do, well, the best way to work with us and learn from us, receive a lot of transmission, and so much more will be to join our online community. It's called the Universal Arcturian Community. And we have different membership, some of them very, very affordable. And what we do is that through the community that we have created over the years, we have members from all over the world, members who are very dedicated to their journey. They're beautiful, light and minded people who've come together,
Mm.
whether it's to allow their own self-realization or activation to the body template, whether it's emotional, spiritual, but are deepening their own connection with their higher self, their guides, understanding, having a much more peaceful recognition of their soul purpose, and so forth. So we organize every month. We have a calendar of events just for the members. We have
Mm.
a course, we teach class. We offer the Octane holographic group healing. So it's a monthly series, and each month.
I can say that's very powerful. I've done these and they're very powerful.
Thank you, Milan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and what we do is we reattune uh, the frequency of the theme every month, whether it's the plasma light body, whether it's, the next level of DNA or conscious awakening, emotional. There's so much we do. We also have private Zoom meeting with the members with our
Mm.
global initiative project, where we come together in an empowered way and help everyone to step into their power, activate their gifts, and we send, implement new band of frequencies onto the planet. We have a lot of exchange. We also have retreat for the members. And this is
Mm-mm.
very much where we're moving into more teaching, helping you to gain more momentum, understanding, so you can have your own breakthroughs and still receive the guidance, the support that you need. And watching others shifting and evolving along the way, it's very empowering. So
Yeah,
it's on,
it's contagious, eh?
yes, it's spread, right?
You shift with them.
Exactly. Exactly. I like the way you said. So this is what I would say one of the best way to work
Mm.
with us. I also have the Arcturian Healing Arts program, and the program is coming to
Ah.
a completion right now. And depending on my speaking engagements and travel commitments, I might bring it back a second time this year. But I'm
Mm.
working on creating a digital package people can purchase, and it's a beautiful program. It's a hybrid program between teachings and transmission, and it really is
Mm.
a pathway of rediscovery of the true
Mm.
potential of who you are. There's 3 levels, and we guide you through all the levels. And so we're going to gear more in terms of teaching, training, helping you to reawaken
Mm.
you back to your own reality.
Mm.
And Arcturians are really a future example of the potential that you're reaching.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing
Of
this,
course.
Viviane. And so people can reach you on Infinite Healings from the Stars. That's your website. You also have a book, Wisdom of the Silver Sisters, Guiding Grace. And you're the co host of the Infinite Star Connection podcast, which I was a guest a couple of years ago. So people can connect with you on the podcast too. So, am I forgetting something? Where, where can we reach you? I think the website is the best entry door. Eh?
I agree with you. The
Okay.
website Infinite Eating from the Stars is the best way.
Yeah.
We do have also a contact form. You can also sign up for our newsletter. I'm going to be,
Oh, yeah. And then you'll see all the events and
yes, yes, indeed. And you're right about that. And I'm going to be also speaking at different conferences that you can also maybe come. I'm
mm,
going to be in Sedona in March for the conference there, the Ascension Retreat. I'm going to be
mm,
also in Illinois in May for the Rebels of Disclosure with Journey to Truth.
mm,
And I'm going to be also traveling. I'm going to Portugal and Australia and potentially Japan. We're working on a proposal right now, and also going to be
that's fun.
uh, co- communicating, yes, speaking at a conference. It's called Contact at Sea. It's a beautiful cruise ship that's going to Alaska in September. It's
Mm,
also going to be put on my website, so you can sign up to
mm,
be on the cruise
mm,
ship. It's an exclusive private conference with other speakers, and I'm offering bonus packages for those who sign up. And we get to
mm,
travel around Alaska and connect and inviting our star brothers and sisters to come and commune with us.
mm, mm. Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Viviane. Thank you for your time. I hope people at home have gained insights from this really deep conversation. If you like the conversation, please leave a review or leave a thumbs up or share it with a friend. And until next time, well, thank you again, Viviane. My heart is exploding of joy. So thank you for joining me. And I'm wishing the people at home a magnificent, enlightening Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.